The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
Mike Clowney, game week's here. Open us up with a statement about starting a season, unbelievably, for a third time in 6 years against a top 10 team, and when you go to play the West Georgia Wolves.
I think that's something that, you put a schedule together, like one of the biggest things that, I've always been taught as a player growing up, as a coach going through, like you want to put yourself in situations where you challenge yourself out of the gate to kind of figure out exactly where you are. It's one thing I know after last year, but I think for us as a program, we're still talking about, what's that picture look like to get us back to the point to where we can get ourselves in national contention. And so I think we get an opportunity out the gate to go play a team that's, rated number 9 in the country in a couple of polls. And I think the lowest they're rated right now is 12. Had a good run in the playoffs last year. So I think it's a good test for us out of the gate to figure out where we are and what we need to do going into the rest of the season.
Think about West Georgia, and I guess this speaks very well to the quality of quarterback play in the Gulf South. Harrison Frost isn't an all-conference selection, but when you have Austin Reed slinging things, and Ivory and Valdosta State, tough sledding, but man, completed 10 straight passes against you, started 12 of 14 last year, more than 300 yards. What sticks out to you about him and his capabilities under center?
I think the biggest thing for them, in our game last year, the efficiency. That's where you talk about completing 10 straight passes, to where, we were giving them some things, and, he did a great job of taking advantage of it, getting the ball in other guys' hands to get them an opportunity to make plays, and that's kind of what their offense is designed around.
You look at your own team, and there's a lot that's personnel-wise that's similar to last year, but there's a lot that is brand spanking new, but yet it has a degree of veteran depth because you're so transfer heavy this year. How do you like how this team has meshed together through fall camp?
I think the biggest thing about this team is we talked about yesterday, not every day's been perfect, but the thing that you see is the heart. That's one thing we talk about with Coach Sparks, the heart every day. They show up to work. They show up working to get better. They compete with one another in a way that helps us get better and doesn't tear us apart. So it's been fun watching this team grow, and it's going to be fun to watch them actually get into a game against someone else to see, exactly where we are.
You don't want to compare apples to oranges too much, but is there anything that you feel is different from last year, at least in terms of their makeup?
I think the people, for one, the people are different. I think a couple of the guys that played last year is what we're looking at, from a secondary standpoint. I think 2 guys that played, really any of those guys that played in the game last year, this was their first time stepping on a college football field, in that game against West Georgia. So, some of them went through the season, played. We had 1 or 2 that wound up getting hurt and having a red shirt. But, at least they've been on the field before. And so, we're excited about seeing how they come out and compete.
Does the growth remind you at all of what took place kind of 2016 to 2017, where a Des Farrell, a Darius Williams, that crew was kind of baptized by fire in 2016, and the fruits paid off over the next 3 years?
That's one thing we talked about a lot last year, was just kind of, it was so similar to that group to where, I was trying to work, from a recruiting standpoint to get out of that phase to where, it wasn't just then. It's like a couple times now that we've run this cycle to where, we emptied a barrel, and then all of a sudden, we kind of go back and regroup. And so I think that there are a lot of comparisons there, and then the secondary, like where you talk about, but you kind of see that in these guys with Jalen Anderson, Kendall Williams, Callum Clements. It's the exact same makeup.
West Georgia, very much running back by committee last year, and the one that you probably know the most about, Mosley, isn't listed on the 2 deep, but he's still on the team. How do you prepare for who's touching the ball in the backfield for the Wolves?
I think the biggest thing for us is to be sound up front, be gap savvy, and go make tackles. It really doesn't matter who's there if we'll fill gaps the right way, and we'll be solid and fundamental as far as tackling. Then we'll be where we need to be.
Number 2 defense in the Gulf South last year for the Wolves. What sticks out to you about that?
they had a lot of experience last year. They were super competitive. It's when you watch them on film, you didn't see them make a lot of mistakes. And when you don't make mistakes on defense, you give yourself a chance to win because you force the other team to kind of continue to snap the football. You don't give up big plays.
Because you are still so new, and maybe a little bit more experienced than you were last year just because of the transfers, but because you are still so new, how do you measure success outside of wins and losses for this team?
I think it'll be the effort. It'll be, how well do we execute? Do we go execute and make plays where we need to? There's a bunch of different things that I think you look at when you're developing a football team, and if you do those things the right way, you win the game. And so that's kind of like the culminating part. And then, how well do we come back if whatever mistakes we do have and lock in and fix those mistakes going into the next game each week? Do we use those mistakes to build us or do we allow them to destroy us?
Your team last year, turnover prone, multiple giveaways each of the last 8 weeks of the season. Do you make it an emphasis point, or is it something, hey, new year, we're not worrying about it so that we don't cause it to happen?
I think it's one of those things. I think you have to make it an emphasis point. It's like the biggest key in winning football games is taking care of the football. When you look at, where we were last year, you say, hey, what'll be one of the main reasons that you really struggle is we didn't take care of the football. And, it's a couple things that we did, in the spring game. We altered the scoring system to kind of accentuate, hey, this is how turnover really hurt you. And even when you go back and take away the turnover points in that spring game, most of the points put on the board were a direct result of turnovers. And so Coach Weaver's done a great job of emphasizing that. He's been turnover coach. Coach Turner was doing it when he was here before, but Coach Weaver's done a great job last couple of weeks, making sure that, we're conscious of, how we carry the football.
Defensively for the Wolves, Marzavian Dix has been there a minute. Old Gulf South defensive lineman. Their coaches call him the leader. What sticks out to you about him on tape?
I mean, you can see the leadership on tape. He's the guy that the other guys on defense gravitate to, and it's obvious when you watch them on film that he's the guy that kind of makes them tick. And, that's because of that experience and that leadership. Those are the things that help you come into a season ranked in the top 10.
Road openers are a bit of a collector's item for Carson-Newman football over the last decade. Just the second time in the last 10 years you've started away from Mercatar. Anything to that, or does it take some less pressure off the fact that you're not opening up the home fans, or is it, hey, let's just go play football?
We're just going to go play football. Haven't thought about it one bit. I mean, there's a game in front of us, and we want to go compete.